Hello, my name is XPLovecat and welcome to my channel. I make all things related to H.P. Lovecraft, who was a horror writer from the 1920s. So anything from story reviews, board game reviews, movies, music inspired by Lovecraft, you can find all of that at my channel. And today I'm actually going to be doing a short story review of Dagon, which is one of the first stories written by H.P. Lovecraft. So I have with me this book. It is called The Complete Cthulhu Mythos Tales by H.P. Lovecraft, and it just compiles a bunch of his short stories. And today I'm actually reviewing this first story in this book, which is Dagon, and it was written in 1917 by H.P. Lovecraft. So before we get into it, just a warning that there will be spoilers. This story is actually only 5 pages, so it's really short, and I wanted to make sure I gave a synopsis. This story starts out from the perspective of someone who is in a not great mental state. He's really struggling, and he's recounting a tale of when he was in the Great War. So he was captured by a German ship, but was able to escape that capture and was stranded in the ocean for countless days. He finally came across some land, but it was a very strange land. You would imagine someone who found land would be extremely excited, right? But that's not the case. I was in reality more horrified than astonished, for there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. So that's issue number 1. There are several times in this story where bad things happen and you're screaming at the narrator, run the other way, run the other way, like we know something bad is going to happen. That's issue number 1. Issue number 2, he finds out that this area could probably dry out in a few days. It's very strange. He's trying to rationalize it in his head, like, is this a volcanic land that's rising up? He's trying to rationalize this weird situation. And so he waits 3 days and it dries out for him. He's able to walk on the land and he's distracted by this very tall monolith. So he goes towards the monolith and finds horrifying hieroglyphics on this monolith. And he describes what he sees. Of their faces and forms, I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint, grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Belvoir. They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. So these are horrifying, grotesque creatures that are depicted on this monolith. And I'm sure by the time that he was processing this information and not sure what to do, this giant creature comes out. H.P. Lovecraft does not explicitly describe what this creature looks like. And that's, I think, part of his writing is to make our imaginations do the work and really focus on the unknown. So this narrator might not even be able to describe very well what he was seeing because it's not something he had seen before and something very horrific. He says, I think I went mad then when he sees this creature. So then he runs back, at some point passes out, wakes up in a hospital, and for the rest of his life is plagued by the horrors of what he'd seen. He tries to turn to drugs to mute it, but unfortunately he's running out of his supply, and his only solution, he feels, is to take his own life. So now I want to get into my thoughts on the story. So I really enjoyed this. It was a really quick read, like I said, 5 pages, and I thought it gave a really good representation for how H.P. Lovecraft writes and his genre. So I would definitely recommend this story for someone who's just easing into his works. A couple barriers to entry might be like the vocabulary he uses. I found myself having to look up some of the words. Although context is an amazing thing, I still had to go back and look up some of the words because I'm like, I've never even heard this word before. He also just writes different than modern writers, so it's something you kind of have to get used to. I find I have to be in a quiet space so I can actually concentrate on his writing. So that being said, because it is a short story, it's a pretty quick read and something I would recommend for someone who's just starting out reading his works. Like good horror, it kept me on edge because I knew something bad was coming, but the narrator kept pressing on until this great horror Dagon appears. But unique to Lovecraft, it was really a focus on fear of the unknown and making my imagination do the work and leave me hanging and wanting more about the lore. So that's one thing that this story, because it's so short, it didn't have a lot of descriptions. So I really found myself wanting to understand more about Dagon, about these sea creatures, and learn more about that lore, which is why I'm sure there's so many things inspired by his works, is because we just want to make up these things and learn more. I also really liked how in classic Lovecraft fashion, our narrator went insane by the things that he was seeing. These cosmic horror beings made him insane and plagued him for the rest of his life. So above all, I really thought this was a great starter story for those who want to get into H.P. Lovecraft. Now I'm going to do a rating system that's going to be out of 5 cats. And the more cats, the better, obviously. So I'm going to give this one 3.5 cats. Probably shouldn't do a half of a cat. Okay, so let me give it 3 cats and 1 kitten out of 5. And would highly recommend this for someone who's easing into the genre. That concludes my short story review of Dagon. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please subscribe. And let me know in the comments below if you would like me to review any particular short stories by H.P. Lovecraft. Thanks for joining me, and come back to see more Lovecraft-related content. Bye!